That's not a comic book. Now that's a comic book.
Anyway, let's wrap up this week with, by popular request, Dark Knight, a true Batman story. And you know what? I'm really excited about this part. Okay? This is going to be so damn silly and stupid, but I swear it's the greatest thing ever. My favorite thing about this graphic novel: the slipcase off, dust jacket off. It's got a cover. It's got art on the cover. It's the same art too. I really like that about it. Um, Different art on the back. I like the art on the back even more. I don't like that a lot of books. I feel like books should use their covers more because it's the only chance you have to visualize something. If you need to put a summary of your book, put it in here. Or alternatively, here. Putting the summaries on the back, I don't like. Anyway. Uh, so yes, Dark Knight, a true Batman story. Now, originally I saw this last week, and I almost immediately grabbed it because short Batman graphic novel, Batman and Joker on the cover. I can just do those. Those are fine. But then I saw the subtitle, and I was like, oh, what? And then I read the back, and it was about Paul Dini. This is an autobiography. This is an autobiographical story about Paul Dini. It's got parts of his life. It talks a little bit about his childhood and some time afterward and stuff. But this is primarily about spoilers. This is primarily about when he was mugged while working on Batman Mask of the Phantasm. And I did not know that happened. And let me just, before I get into the book itself, let me just talk about my feelings on Paul Dini and as a writer and Batman the Animated Series and stuff. I do enjoy Batman the Animated Series quite a bit. I think it is just a fantastic series in the history of animation. It did a lot of great work. And it's one of the things that I think turned Batman into Bat God. And say what you will about Bat God, but I love Bat God. So it was instrumental in doing that. And Paul Dini, of course, isn't the only one responsible for that. But he was a big part of it. He was a big part of the writing team, and he wrote some of the most famous episodes. That being said, I don't particularly care for Paul Dini's take. Like, I don't really care one way or another for Paul Dini's take on Batman. I think he writes Batman competently, and that's fine. What I don't like is Paul Dini's take on the Joker. And, this makes me question how much of that is him and how much of that was censorship by Warner Brothers wanting a very particular characterization of the Joker. I tend to think more of it's him because I've read other stuff he's written with the Joker and after Batman the Animated Series that doesn't have to be anything like Batman the Animated Series. And so I think that this is just his take on the Joker. Paul Dini writes the Joker in such a way that he does not buy what he is selling. And there's nothing inherently wrong with that. I just find it kind of pointless to write the character that way anymore. The way Paul Dini and some other writers like Scott Snyder write the Joker is in such a way that he acts like he's crazy and he does all these like insane schemes really just for his own benefit, but he does them in that way because of his ego, but also in the guise of insanity so he doesn't have to pay for his crimes, is the idea that those two write that character as. Like, the Joker doesn't really want Batman to kill him. He wants He wants to kill Batman. He hates Batman. He wants to kill Batman. He wants money and power and fame. And that's not quite the Joker. It's close, and there are older versions of the character that are that. But I feel the character has moved beyond that and has evolved into something much more terrifying and just frankly more interesting. Now, I respect Paul Dini's take on writing the Joker this way much more than I do Scott Snyder's, because the problem with how Scott Snyder characterizes and writes the Joker is it's okay, it's fine to write the Joker as someone who does not buy what he's selling. But the problem is, you then have to make what he's doing self-serving. So here's what annoys me about Scott Snyder's Joker. That character does not buy what he is selling, but everything he does, literally everything he does, serves no purpose for himself. And that bothers me. You can't... It's an inconsistency that doesn't work as well. It's the Joker. It's allowed to be inconsistent. That excuse doesn't work. This is like just a very base thing. Either the Joker is a maniac who is legitimately obsessed with Batman and wants to show him that Batman's wrong, that the Joker is right, and all these other things. These really fascinating ideas that I think are handled beautifully in works like The Dark Knight, to a certain extent The Dark Knight Returns. I can give you a list of them. But anyway, you either write the Joker like that, or you write him as a crook, a very eccentric crook, but that is ultimately out for himself and really doesn't have a spine. Paul Dini writes him that way, that second way. Scott Snyder writes him the first way with the motivations and backing of the second way, and those two are fundamentally opposed, inconsistent characterizations and just cannot function together in a story, and that's what annoys me about it. But anyway, what makes me wonder about how much of Paul Dini's take on the Joker is what we saw him do in things like the animated series or Sleigh Ride, the comic. Milan did a motion comic of that. I did too, but Milan's is better because it has Lord Chaser doing the voice acting as opposed to me. I'll try to remember to leave a link in the comments below. Description. I'll try to remember to leave a link to that in the description so you can see something else, Paul Dini's take on the Joker. What makes me question if that is truly his take is now this. Because what Paul Dini describes in this and how he has the artist visualize it is that his whole life he has had a very vivid, very active imagination and sees these characters and converses and thinks about and talks with these characters as if they're in the room. And I don't have that quite, but I've had it at times where I can so understand and imagine and be around this character mentally that I can see them personified in the room. I could totally understand where he's coming from with that. And the way he writes the Joker in this, the way he, if we take him at his word, the way he thinks of the Joker being around him, that's the Joker. And so maybe it's a situation where he knows how the Joker actually thinks, but the best he can do in his writing is to just take the out that he doesn't really mean it. Or maybe it's the studios and stuff just wanting him to write the Joker in that way, wanting that version of the Joker around. It's hard to tell. But it's an interesting possibility. So there's just some general thoughts on Paul Dini as a writer. And now I'm going to use that to transition to the book itself. So with those general thoughts, yeah, I turned it I decided not to pick it up last week just because, I'm not a big Paul Dini guy, so I didn't think I'd enjoy it. Again, this is here by popular demand. Connor Nielsen left a comment. Hi, Connor. How's it going? Connor Nielsen left a comment saying, "Oh, you should review Dark Knight, a true Batman story." I get the name. Maybe a better title that hasn't been used as much. There's like 4 or 5 different Dark Knight Batman things at this point. Anyway, Connor left a comment asking me to review this, and then 2 other people seconded it, or one person seconded it, and then one person thirded it, I guess. Anyway, so I decided to pick it up. Thank you, guys. This was incredible. I don't really want to talk about the story in it, though, because it's just so damn emotional, and so much of it just works in the moment and sells itself to you so well that I don't want to take that from you. So I'm going to try not to describe the story and just describe my feelings on the book. And that makes it harder to do. So bear with me here. I've only read one other thing that is this damn honest, this damn genuine, and that is Persepolis. Those are really, really good graphic novels by, I'm going to butcher her name, Marjane Satrapi. I think I said that right. About her growing up during the Iranian Revolution. And those are fantastic books, and they're so just honest and genuine, and it's really an emotional read because you are 100% in her head. She doesn't hold anything back. With this, you are 100% in Paul Dini's head. He does not hold anything back from you. You are there to... He opens himself up to all kinds of judgment. He tells you things that are just ugly things about himself that he is not proud of. And he leaves you to experience that. He's like, here's some shit that I did in my life, and I'm ashamed of myself for it. But I've moved on. I've learned how to deal with it. These are the experiences that I've had in my life. These are the things that I'm afraid of. And this is how I cope with them. This is how I've thought. This is how I think. This is everything about my life that I don't really bring out and project to the public, but here you go now. There's nothing that feels calculated. Like, you read biographies or autobiographies even. We're in an election year. This happens. Where the people running for office will release like an autobiography, and it'll have some like, here's a mistake I made in my life that I've learned from. But it's always very calculated. It's always very cold. And they kind of tend to use it to branch out to a different point on a wider context. And they don't really use it for self-reflection in any deep and meaningful way. This does. There is nothing political. There is nothing calculated about this book. This is just a confession. This is just a man really pouring out his soul about a really messed up period in his life and what he did to deal with it. And it is inspiring. It is frightening. It's incredibly emotional. It is an incredibly emotional experience. And I'm going to end it right there, because otherwise I'm just going to want to talk about this scene, this scene, and this scene. But that being said, I have got to talk about one scene. So, before I do that, I'm going to say go ahead and pause or end the video right here if you haven't read this yet, and then you can come back to it once you have. But do go read it. Do go buy it. It's worth it. How much did I spend on this? Let's see here. $22.99. Yeah, that's not too bad. And, like, you're getting a really good, graphic novel. Nice, quick read. Beautiful cover without the dust jackets. I think that's all worth it. Anyway, go pick it up. It's worth your while, I promise. And then there's just really cool art. But the way he writes the Joker is great too, and it's a really haunting version of the Joker. But anyway, I wanted to talk about this one specific scene. So if you've already read this, you can continue watching. If you haven't read it yet, but I've sold you on it, go get it now. See ya. Okay, so this scene I absolutely adore, and I can't believe it didn't happen. I'm like, come on, why wasn't this a thing? This should have been a thing. Because it's Paul Dini pitching an episode of Batman the Animated Series with the Sandman and Death in it. Why wasn't that a thing? What the hell? That would have been like his pitch. You could put Morpheus Sandman in a fucking McDonald's commercial and I would burst into tears. You could, I don't think it's possible to write a bad Sandman story. I think Sandman is just a character whose own magic and wonder and beauty makes you a better writer. I don't think it's conceivable for anyone to write a bad Sandman story because it just brings out the best in you by the nature of what it is. That's a hard image to look at again. Sorry, I closed the book. I shouldn't have done stat. So yeah, we get this Sandman bit. Oh, wait, this is where he's talking to all Batman's villains. Yeah, we get this Sandman story. And it's only, really, Sandman's only on the book for 2 pages. Let me count the panels here. You got Death for 2 pages. 1, 2, 6. You got 6 panels with Death. And 6 panels with Sandman. And it's the best part of the book. How is that even possible? That's really funny. But it's just so good. So the story that Dini pitched with Sandman is all of Batman's villains team up and lure him into a trap. And Batman barely survives the encounter, and he's like hanging from the side of a building, almost dying. And then Death shows up, and she's calls him the cheater and that he's dodged her for the last time. But then Morpheus appears. He tells his sister that Batman is his guest in his realm, and he asks Death to spare him for now. Of course, Batman has no idea what these two are talking about. He only knows he's in the middle of some insane dream brought about by his injuries. Death's not happy, but family is family, so she hangs back while Morpheus tells Batman he is responsible for more dreams than he knows. Dreams of Batman in all forms pervade human minds. Acting like a ghost out of Dickens' A Christmas Carol, Morpheus shows Batman how his image haunts the dreams of the wicked, scaring more than a few of them into giving up crime. The Sandman also reveals how Batman has instilled dreams of hope in the people he's saved. In his own way, Batman is a powerful agent of the dreaming. These revelations are the things Batman admits he may have felt on some level, but he's always pushed them aside in his mind in order to concentrate on his mission. Morpheus tells Batman he stands at a crossroads. He can follow death to eternal rest, or he can allow Morpheus to wake him. Neither choice is wrong, but only Batman may make the choice. Batman knows waking means he will have to deal with pain, but he also knows he will heal. He chooses to live. There is a bright light and Batman recoils in pain. God damn. I don't even think Neil Gaiman deserves credit for creating Sandman. I think that character made himself. And just took a hold of, just said, hey Gaiman, let me borrow your hands for like 10 years. You're going to write some stories about me. And no, if you read Morpheus in the Sandman book, it's really what happens. And I'm just so glad that character is in the world because, oh man, some of the most personal, most touching stories you'll read. If you are a comic fan and you've never read any Sandman, what are you doing listening to me? Go read it. You should have, first of all, shame on you, because you should have read Sandman in this before watching this part of the video. But what can you do? I just want to talk briefly about the art. As I do like the art in this. The art is good. I'm not going to try to deny that. It is, like, really, for some of the stuff that that Dini is talking about dealing with in this, it has kind of a haunting quality to it and a dreamlike, imagined state to it at times. And that's good. But, and this is an important but, with how much of this is about Batman the Animated Series and what was going on with Dini during that, I really wish he'd gotten Bruce Timm to draw it. That would have made this in some way, like, it's still very, very powerful. And the art is very, very good on just a technical level, and it does well to communicate all the emotions Dini is trying to get across. But with Bruce Timm and Paul Dini kind of being the guys behind Batman the Animated Series in a lot of ways, I really think that it would have made the story play even better than it does if he'd gotten Bruce Timm to draw it in the style of the DCAU. Maybe that's just me. For those of you that have read it, please comment on what you think of that idea for the art. Because, I don't know, I feel like it would have added another layer of commentary to this whole meta fiction that's going on with this. And just generally, it's always interesting to read an autobiography in graphic novel form, because it gives people the chance to do things I don't think you can do in normal autobiographies. But yeah, really, really good read. Incredibly insightful. Made me like Paul Dini as a writer maybe a little bit more than I did before. His stuff has always been good, but just not quite to my taste. But now I've got kind of a newfound respect and a newfound insight into him as a writer, and I find that really fascinating.
That's not a comic book. Now that's a comic book.